Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
And before I get into the budget debate, Madam Speaker, I crave your indulgence on two small matters.
Yes.
First of all, this waterman has nothing to do with the rain. Madam Speaker.
That's matter number one?
No. Madam Speaker, in regional parliaments, it is imperative that members who get up to speak the truth, because there's a consequence for that. And I therefore want to bring to your attention a statement by the Minister of Finance relative to registered farmers in this country and their ability to get compensation. The minister stated that all registered farmers are compensated. And so, Madam Speaker...
Just a minute, Honourable Member. I need your assistance so that I'm clear. When exactly was that statement made?
You can find them, Madam Speaker, at the minister's address, and you can also find them on API and your local radio stations recap of the exact quote from him.
So it was done during the minister's budget speech?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
And so, Madam Speaker, several years ago, contrary to the minister of who just spoke before me, I have been involved in farming. In fact, I have a couple of acres of land that I bought many years ago, which I've been farming. And I had to carry my deed to the ministry to become a registered farmer. And so when I heard that from the Minister of Finance, I went during the break yesterday to the Ministry of Agriculture and presented my ID so that I could be compensated, only to be told that I am not on the list. And so I went directly to the Chief Agricultural Officer to get an explanation for who is really telling the truth. And I am still waiting to hear from him as to what is going to happen. But, Madam Speaker, it is important when we make statements in this Honourable House, they must be based on facts. They must be based on fact. Every registered farmer does not get assistance from the government. Does not. And we must not make idle boasts. And when we pull up these things, Madam Speaker, they say we are not telling the truth. That is what I wanted to bring to your attention, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I therefore move to add my comments, my suggestions and recommendations to the debate of Budget 2025. And the first thing I want to do, Madam Speaker, is to say how proud I am of the presentation made by my leader, the majority leader in this parliament, when he stated categorically, Madam Speaker, that he has no qualms with recognizing anything that is good from the government side. And he is not just here to make the government look bad. And Madam Speaker, I relate 100% to that. In this small country of ours, with a limited human resource base, many of whom have to leave these shores to earn a living, we have to recognize the importance of soliciting every idea and coming up with the most practical plans for the development of our people. Madam Speaker, in this context, I was very troubled when a senator and a junior minister yesterday attempted to pour scorn on the presentation of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in a most contemptuous way. And it reminds me, Madam Speaker, of an expression that my granny used to use many years ago. A cockroach has no right in foul party. It reminds me of that expression, Madam Speaker. You know, in this Parliament, we ought to have, and Madam Speaker, you know, I am not the kind of person who likes to use my expressions carelessly. I'm not suggesting that anybody is a cockroach or a fowl. It is an analogy. It is an analogy. It is not derogatory in any way. I don't do that. Madam Speaker, but it reminds me, you know, when I look at this budget, the entire presentation, including that of the Honourable Minister of Finance, it reminds me of times past. Because I grew up in a home of 13. And like the Honourable Senator, I'm very proud that she's able to lift herself out of poverty. That's what this is all about. I grew up in a home where there were 13 of us, including 2 parents. Madam Speaker, the difference between people like ourselves and those who were born with the proverbial spoon in their mouth, like the leader on the other side, they do not understand what it is to build on what you have. But they like to take other people's money and squander it and get annoyed when you complain in their approach. We are saying that, like long ago, at Christmas Eve, Madam Speaker, you're too young for this, but the whole family went into Kingstown on Christmas Eve, and we bought all kinds of toys, little toys. And I remember going home in the evening, it was dark, and you start pull out the gun and you're shooting all over the place. By the time you reach home, the gun, you had nothing left to shoot. No, Madam Speaker, the point is, in this budget, we are preoccupied with the little flashy lights, a project here, a project there. We are not looking what happens when the flashy light goes out. And that leads me to a little word, maintenance. Not maintenance, as most of us like to say. The word is maintenance. And it is the bugbear of this administration. This government, Madam Speaker, has the most atrocious track record when it comes to maintaining any infrastructure, whether it be schools, hospitals. I wouldn't mention roads, because they don't have roads. Airports, wharfs, ports. The major project in Kingstown is occasioned by the failure, absolute failure, to maintain the existing port. That is the cause of this huge expenditure, the failure to maintain the existing port. Go down the Grenadines. All of the ports are in derelict, in fact, some are non-existent. This government came into being, Madam Speaker, and one of the first acts was to boast about a $5 million project to repair schools. That program hasn't even been finished yet. Hasn't even been finished yet. They haven't even accounted for most of the money up to now. Haven't. But Madam Speaker, I want to be kind, eh? I want to be kind. I want to be kind. Madam Speaker, please do them. I know you have influence. I want to be kind. Madam Speaker, all aspects of the operations of this government really making us feel uncomfortable as a people, because we do not understand, or we don't seem to care, that just building a new project is a part of the process. Before we build a project, even before, Madam Speaker, we need to sit down with the people who are going to operate in the buildings, or whatever the infrastructure is, and get their input into the design. We need to look not just at the bare cost, initial cost of the building, but whether we can achieve long-term savings by spending a little bit more upfront in the types of materials that we purchase to put into the construction. These are common sense things, Madam Speaker, and again, I use as a simple, straightforward example the very proud CWSA headquarters building, built by the CWSA with its own funds. Look at it today. Look at the quality of that building today, in and out. Look at the way even the air conditioning was designed. Look at the way the roof and the windows were selected to keep the building cool through long hours. Look at the way, Madam Speaker, central air conditioning, but with separate units in areas that are less frequently used, like in the conference room and in the library and so forth. Common sense, it's the little things, Madam Speaker, that matter, because if you look at the cost of maintaining the electricity charges for that building, you will be amazed compared to other government buildings. These are the things that matter. And I'm saying this, Madam Speaker, not to praise myself. When that building was being constructed, Madam Speaker, every employee and several members of the public had an opportunity to impact on the design of the building. That's how you do things. You have to hear from those who matter. And it reminds me, Madam Speaker, when we come here and we point out to this government how they can improve the governance of this country, they heap scorn on us. They never listen until years after, like when they reduce the student loan, after heaping scorn on it. But we come here with the earnest intention of assisting in the governance of this country. And so today, we look at the airport. We went and we bought those expensive bridges. Nobody paid any attention to the maintenance of those bridges. Nobody did. Even in the design of the airport, we told them about not using the curved roof, but use flat roofs so that you can put solar panels on top of them. They threw cold water on that. We're against the airport. When you look at the amount of metallic objects on the outside of that building with not sufficiency of covering. Madam Speaker, anytime you go to that airport, see the corrosion that's already taken place. These are little things that matter. These are little things that add up. We're not a rich country, and even rich countries can't afford to do that. But Madam Speaker, I want to turn to health along the same maintenance line. You see, I hear all this braggadocious talk about a new state-of-the-art hospital. And so many of the recommendations from the World Bank, the report which was like pulling teeth without anesthetic to get it from the minister. So many of the very serious recommendations from the World Bank have gone to the dogs. One of the things that the World Bank asked, Madam Speaker, is that while, and I'll quote from them just now, while the new hospital is important, there are so many more critical things that must be done even before you start to build a hospital. That is not happening. Not happening. And Madam Speaker, one wonders whether that was one of the reasons why they didn't want to go out to tender. whether they didn't want to stick to the conditions precedent, whether they didn't want to look to make sure that the site for the hospital has proper drainage. Clearly they didn't want to look at those kinds of issues. But you don't build a hospital for the now. A project of that kind is designed for at least 50 years. And that is why you have environmental impact studies, and that is why these things must be paid special attention to. The World Bank studies required the government to do a proper drainage plan for the area before you select it. That isn't done. Because their interest is building a shiny object. And if the light goes out a year or two after, it's not their interest, they'll be out of government. That's what I'm talking about, Madam Speaker. When you spend that amount of money, you must listen carefully to different opinions, even though they don't coincide with your desires. Because it's the people's money. It's not yours. Madam Speaker, it is this same lack of maintenance that has us in the situation now where even the recently installed MRI machine not functioning. You know, we buy or we get all these equipment and we big ceremony and we clap and we carry on. We don't pay attention to one. What are the conditions under which it has to be installed or stored? Who is going to look after it? Where can you get parts? Madam Speaker, the World Bank appraisal project makes specific mention of that fact. Let me quote from the document, Madam Speaker. You know, and I say this is really common sense. Common sense. On page 27 of this document, Madam Speaker, 59, subsection E, maintenance support to avoid service delivery delays and protect investment. Maintenance costs in the Caribbean are high on average compared to industry standards. This is because skills locally and regionally for equipment maintenance are in scarce supply. Public sector in-house skills for maintenance are limited, and the cost to procure replacement parts are high. To mitigate this risk, the construction management consultant, this is a person that the World Bank required the government to employ, will prepare maintenance strategy and plan for the old and the new equipment that will be placed at the Annisvale Hospital. Madam Speaker, this business of building a new hospital, as delayed as it is, as important as it is but a small step in the possibility of delivering the kind of service that our people deserve. If you put in new wine in old bottle, Madam Speaker, you have a problem. You have a real problem. The Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Finance, by removing the finance from the World Bank and finding an alternative source that has little to no conditions precedent, has put us as a people in jeopardy, because it is very clear to me that this government is not interested in doing all of the things that the World Bank required of it. to make sure that the people of this country benefit from this huge investment in health. And that troubles me, Madam Speaker. That troubles me. There are so many things that the World Bank pointed out in its appraisal report that are so germane to the delivery of healthcare services. I'll give you some of the introductory comments from the report that the Minister of Finance didn't want, apparently, to lay in my hands. Ask yourself that. Ask yourself that. It says on item 16, the health service delivery network is composed of dated public sector model and limited regulation of the private sector. Madam Speaker, in this Honourable House, I've reported before of a study undertaken by then Minister of Health, Dr. Slater, on the structure for managing Milton Cato and other hospitals. I can speak to it, Madam Speaker, because the Minister asked me to be a part of the team recommending to the government how they should go about it. And my late Trinidadian friend, Larry, was a chairman, and I said to the Minister then, I will join in the team only if this gentleman is part of the team. Larry Duncan, of blessed memory, Madam Speaker, is a Vincentian who managed several significant private hospitals in Trinidad. And 15 years after his retirement, they still wanted him to remain in those institutions. And he brought to this committee his wealth of experience, and we fashioned a report on how the government may move the hospital administration from within the stricture of the public service to creating a semi-autonomous agency, not unlike the CWSA, but in so many ways different, to deliver an efficient health care to this country. You see, Madam Speaker, when you have a hospital system that is one under the public service stricture, that really limits your ability to get anything done. And again, Madam Speaker, I know exactly what I'm talking about. When you have that kind of a system, but worse, when you have a person as the administrator of that hospital, Madam Speaker, who is a political agent, who has been selected as a candidate for the party, maintaining a position as administrator of an institution to deliver health across the nation, you cannot inspire confidence in people going to that institution. You wouldn't do it in the Water Authority. In the Water Authority, Madam Speaker. In the Water Authority, we got the unions to agree. We got the trade unions to agree that no employee of the CWSA should become active politicians. We got the unions to agree to that. And that came out, Madam Speaker, out of life experience, where a member of staff in Camden Park actually got involved in a cutlass fight with one of our customers. Why? Different party politics. Madam Speaker, when you talk about water and health, you're talking life. And everybody has to know that you have to have people who could go above the fray and deal objectively with every single customer. When you see the number of instances where people are dying in the hospital under circumstances that everybody tells you that should not happen, and there is no consequence, there is no serious investigation, there is no opportunity to find the fault and to correct it, That is what we get, more and more of the same thing. Madam Speaker, this World Bank appraisal report points the government to a number of critical steps in the delivery of an effective health care from the awful system that we have now. Not my words. Very poor system that we have now. Yours. Your words. Not your words? The truth hurts a lot, eh? Madam Speaker, the World Bank, in its introductory remarks, said poverty remains a cause for concern and is exacerbated by recent climate events. And this goes back, the latest one then was COVID-19. Madam Speaker, since then we've had Soufre and we've had the burial. So we know that poverty remains a nightmare scenario for us in this country. But Madam Speaker, Clause 9 says, while climate change impacts and extreme weather events are unavoidable, improvements in preparedness can help mitigate their impacts. That's why I'm talking about the need to do the drainage study for the site at Arnesvale. Madam Speaker, could you ask the Honourable Minister to lay that report in the House? It was done. It was done by you. I'm talking about a proper drainage study. Yes, you like your father are an expert on everything. Climate-related health risks, such, Madam Speaker, the report says, climate-related health risks, such as vector-borne and waterborne diseases, are a major constraint on the health, education, and potential earnings of the people living in the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, look at the Ministry of Health. Look at what is happening in the Ministry of Health. We are not seeing any increase at this time. We know we have issues. There are a few additional people over last year on the vector thing. The health inspectors, Madam Speaker. And in my usual way, I want to say, Madam Speaker, where I live in Sharps, I am extremely proud of the work of the vector people who come around. They do it diligently, and they point out in their simple ways how, as householders, we can improve, even where we're not doing badly. But unfortunately, enough of this is not being done. And this is not something that we should just rely on fogging. That preventive work, Madam Speaker, the work by the inspectors, is far more beneficial to us as a people than trying to come to fog. Because fogging creates other, ironically, it's done by the Ministry of Health, but it does create some health concerns, especially with people with bronchial issues, etc. But it's, again, we don't want Band-Aid. We need to solve the problems at source. We need to go back, and the New Democratic Party government, soon to be, will implement the Best Village competition again, where in every community people will be encouraged not just to paint the place, but to clean, remove the garbage, remove the breathing space for the rats and the flies and the mosquitoes, to grow your kitchen garden and your flower garden. Madam Speaker, as I go through this country, especially in the constituency of East St. George, with my dear friend, Sister Lavon Gibson, the next representative for that constituency. I am amazed by the level of creativity with most householders. You know, they have the fence up, but they also have their kitchen garden and the flower garden all in the same space. It's a beautiful thing. It's a sense of pride. We need a nationwide approach to this. And again, you know, Madam Speaker, the act of the government in going twice a year and cutting down all the hills, denuding the hills and allowing all the dirt to come down, is absolutely ludicrous at this time. We should be planting special plants on those hedges and having maintenance programs for them, trim them to look good and stop the erosion and the landslides. That's what we should be employing people to do. Long-term solutions, not short-term nightmares. That's what this is about. Madam Speaker, I see, Madam Speaker, that we are talking about doing a traffic study for Arnesville. Madam Speaker, why do we play games like this? The problem in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with traffic is not just in Arnesville. It's in the entire southern third of the country, particularly from Calico to Camden Park. And doing a study for Arnesville in itself is not extremely helpful at this time. Again, you see, Madam Speaker, a traffic study requires, and when I saw the amount budgeted for it, Madam Speaker, I realized it's a joke, because a traffic study is a very serious thing. It requires the gathering of data over time. It's not an easy thing. But it also has to bear in mind what is going to happen down the road, a year or 2 years from now. Because with the construction of the hospital at Arnesville, and with the removal of the schools, the temporary schools, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 to 10 years, the traffic patterns will change. And so we need to look at traffic, not just in Arnesville. I want to humbly recommend to those involved in this exercise that we revisit the traffic study. It's a good step, but it is only partial. You need to go the full thing and do a traffic study for the critical component of our system. The leeward side is one route, one single road all the way. The solution to that is not difficult. We've been speaking about this forever. The windward side is not so bad, except that the roads are gone. But there are several options, Madam Speaker. If you travel on the windward side, I love, for example, to travel into Mespo, over into Greg's, all the way up in the interior until I come out at Grenadines. It's a beautiful drive. Sometimes the roads are impossible. The highway is not always the best option. Madam Speaker, when we talk about, how much time do I have, Madam Speaker?
You have 13 minutes, 13 minutes.
When we talk about this business about climate change and all of that, Madam Speaker. Who said 13? 30 minutes.
13 minutes remaining. Yes.
I thought I heard 30, Madam Speaker.
No, I'm happy we've clarified that.
It's a good thing what is this? Yeah, Madam Speaker, when we speak about climate change, people, some members of this House seem to think being astute with climate change is about attending a conference somewhere here or there and coming back and thumping the chest. Madam Speaker, there's a project going on at Shipping Bay, spending a lot of money, carrying the fool a little further. Madam Speaker, let us be pragmatic. The entire windward coast is under attack. There are so many places where it's only a matter of a year or two before the highway is gone. The time has long come for us to look at alternative inland highway. Move the highway away from the coast. The Shipping Bay example is a classic case. It's spinning top in mud. by just spending all that money digging that hill and shifting the road a few yards. You're only delaying the problem a few years. When you come to the bridge in the bay, it's worse now than it has been ever. And that road isn't any help. This is what I'm talking about, Madam Speaker. These projects need to be subjected to discussions of people. Reawaken the Engineers Association, the Architects Association, the Contractors Association, and get inputs. Get the planners, not only those in government. Get everybody involved. Listen to different ideas and come up with solutions. That's the kind of innovative thinking that the new Democratic Party government will bring to governance in this country. And that is why I'm so proud of the majority leader and his stance with respect to the way things are being done and how we will be doing it. Madam Speaker, my colleague from South Leeward, the Honourable ST.VINCENT, has been crying for the bridge, for the drainage area from Sweet Spot in Camden Park, River Defence. You know, Madam Speaker, on my side of the boundary, you know, West Kingstown is on the other side of the same river. I have so many of my constituents whose properties are almost gone because of this river. We are begging this government to deal with these things as a matter of course. But Madam Speaker, in the constituency of Mariquah, not far from where the former representative lives, a former senior employee of the Water Authority took his money and built a bridge to get access to his home and his farmlands. This government, for years now, is trying to build a community center not far from his home. What they did, they gave Franco a contract, Madam Speaker. And they put every equipment in the river to remove the boulders just downstream from that gentleman's bridge and on the side of his land. Madam Speaker, the consequence is horrendous. The bridge is almost undermined. His land is about to be washed away. Why could people be so heartless? Why would they think that all you need to do is to shore up the bank for the side where the government structure is, and in the process destroy private property? How could you do that? And after pleading with so many persons in the various government ministries, no solution. This is, Madam Speaker, this is not justice. No empathy. And I know that the current representative for Mariquah is not the kind of person who would sanction that. I don't believe he's aware. Yeah, but speaking is fine. We need action.
That's right.
We need to do something. Do something. Thank you very much, man. I know I can count on you, you know. I know I can count on you. You're only over there because they force you. You and I know that. You and I know that. Don't worry. When we get in government, we will still be friends.
Remember my old schoolmate?
Yes, Madam Speaker, this whole business about climate change, it seems to me that some people think that talk is everything that matters. But there's a whole lot more. I'm looking for paper, man. There's a whole lot more that needs to be done. There's a whole lot more that needs to be done, Madam Speaker. And I go back to this whole question of maintenance. In Kingstown currently, Madam Speaker, the port, which is nearing, the new port, which is nearing completion, has created a serious obstacle with drainage. The water coming out from central Kingstown does not have direct access to the sea. It has to go through a myriad of turns, and 9 times out of 10, it backs up. I am not aware. This happens, the whole area is flooded regularly. This is during construction. I am not aware of the plans for the long-term solution, but I want here, Madam Speaker, simply to flag it as an issue that must not be left unattended. When we build these structures, we need to look at all of the ramifications. That's why you do environmental impact assessment, to see what are the consequences and how you find remedial action. That drainage problem requires a solution. We know the drainage problem at the Milton Cater Memorial Hospital has been going on forever. So the government don't seem to think that that maintenance and drainage is important. Madam Speaker, here is a government that wickedly fired a lot of good public servants on the pretext of a worthless COVID mandate. Madam Speaker, on the pretext of concern for people's health. But today, in delivering health care, you have parents being told that the newborn baby must go and come back and wait till they open a new batch before they could get vaccinated in Milton Cater Memorial Hospital. You're firing people for vaccination, but picnic coming out of the hospital without vaccine. In today's age. I hear people talking about the OECS Pharmaceutical Procurement Service. This government failed to pay the regional entity, and the regional entity stopped supplying medicine to this country. All you have short memory. All you have short memory. The former Minister of Health had to apologize in this honorable, in the honorable House for lying, Madam Speaker. Lying on the subject, denying until I produced the evidence from the very ministry that said that the OECS Pharmaceutical Procurement Service stopped supplying medicine to this country because we weren't paying bill. They're talking about a previous government, the previous government that established the Pharmaceutical Procurement Service. What a web. What a worthless web we try to weave when the attempt is to deceive. Your government is the one. So with respect to vaccination, make sure there is a sufficiency of vaccines so that the newborn babes could, when they're coming out of the hospital, can get all the vaccines necessary. Please do that and get the people back to work, because we in the New Democratic Party will make sure every one of them that is wrongly dismissed will be reinstated with all of their benefits. Yeah? Madam Speaker, I'm not blaming the Honourable Minister of Health for this at all. He doesn't control the purse strings. He doesn't control even for these matters. You know, Madam Speaker, I really just want to echo the sentiments of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition with respect to this budget. I pointed out, for example, with respect to the NTRC building. In last year's budget, Madam Speaker, there's a sum included there for part payment for the property that is now the NTCR building. There's no follow-up on it. Whether the building is purchased, what the cost is, nothing, not a word. But that has disappeared out of the budget. That disappeared. Part payment, last year says they put in a sum for part payment, Madam Speaker. Not a word. Not a word. Next. This year, what they put in for maintenance, for what? For improvement. Madam Speaker, last year, they not only acquired the building, they spent a lot of money to repair it and make it suitable. They didn't tell us how much that cost. But this year, when I thought that figure was for that work, they said, no, that's when you something to go on the site. Madam Speaker, there's a little word call accountability. How can you believe in people when you're holding back vital information so straightforward? How much did you spend to upgrade the building to bring it to where it is? And why you have to put in more money this year for a building you just move into? Those are logical questions. No, you should tell us. That's your duty. It's not your fiefdom. You operate as though you are Lord over us. And it is that why, Madam Speaker, up to now, the Freedom of Information Act passed in the House has not been brought into law because the government is preoccupied with suppressing vital information that the public needs to know. Bring the Freedom of Information Act into law. Bring it. Bring it into law. And stop hiding.
Honourable members.
Stop hiding. Why should I, Madam Speaker, have to ask? Why should anyone have to ask what was the cost of fixing the NTRC building? Why? You put it in the budget last year. You put a new piece in the budget this year, but nothing from last year. You see, Madam Speaker, that's the point I am making, this level of arrogance. Being obstinate with the people's business is frightening for somebody who wants to lead this country. Shame. You have a responsibility to inform us. We're not begging you for information. The people need to know.
Honourable member, you need to be concluding.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
I thank you.
Yes.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. And as usual, what is obvious, when the government brings a real budget, Madam Speaker, when they bring a budget that has honesty, integrity, and accountability, based on the desires of the people of this country, the representative for West Kingstown will support it. But until then, it has no support from me. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For the debate, yes, I recognize the Honourable Senator John.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Didn't see you, sorry. I apologize. Didn't see you. Saw the Senator first. But there are a couple of things while you get the Senator ready. I'm going to invite the Deputy Speaker to take the chair, and there was a housekeeping matter that I missed this morning, but I want it registered in the records. The Honourable Minister Peters, she has expressed her regret